Hillary Clinton may say it's, quote, time to move on, but that does not mean Republicans are finished investigating the Benghazi terror attacks that killed 4 Americans. Even after issuing their scathing report, the House Select Committee has interviewed yet another witness who says he was a crew chief at an air base in Italy on the night of the attacks. Here's Committee Chair Trey Gowdy.
We interviewed a witness yesterday. As long as we're being paid, we have an obligation to work. He was a pilot who alleges that he sat on the ground and could have responded, and we owe it to everybody to run out every single lead. And this person also is subject to cross-examination. The Democrats are in the room, and they can question him, too, if they bother to show up.
Now, all this is happening as we're learning how long it took Hillary Clinton to call Benghazi survivors. According to her top aide, Huma Abedin's congressional deposition last year, Hillary waited 7 weeks to call survivors. Even then, she only called 1 out of 35 because Abedin told her to. That testimony contradicts what Hillary told Congress in an open hearing. Sandy, as long as we can do anything to prevent other Americans from getting killed, because that's what this, to me, that's what this investigation is about. Americans died. That means there was a failure. What was a failure? How did it happen? And how do we prevent it from happening again? As long as those questions remain, we can't move on.
But there's a very simple question. You could ask everybody on this couch or anybody listening at home, do you still have questions about what went on that night? I'm thinking each of you are going to say yes. Did this report reveal anything new? Yes. They talked to people on the ground. Senator Kelly Ayotte of New Hampshire said it perfect. She said this report showed that the ignored request for additional security and the State Department disregarded repeated requests for increased security. Somebody has to answer why. And those families still have unanswered questions. How about them? So for Hillary Clinton right now to say it's time to move on, not only is she wrong, but that's incredibly insensitive
Harris,
for those
the family, not only of those, but the family of everybody who has a member of the armed services, particularly Marine families, because the Marines are stationed at these embassies, want to know what's happened. And until are not in jeopardy now, they don't want it to end.
Yeah, I think it's more important than ever. Just from the perspective of knowing what the leaders were doing at the time, I want to know where President Obama was and what he was doing at this time. I would like, with regard to calling the families, want to know what are the politics at play where you don't call somebody for 7 weeks who's lost a loved one in this way? I mean, what's going on that you don't pick up the phone or send an email on your private server? I do want to mention this. Adam Housley, who's done so much exclusive reporting with those very people on the ground that Sandra just mentioned, said that the air wing of Aviano says that they were ready and available. And that flies in the face of what former CIA Director Leon Panetta had said. So where do we go from there, Kennedy?
Well, what about the violation of the chain of command? If the President and the Secretary of Defense both said that military assets need to be mobilized, my big why is, why weren't they? I mean, why did everyone below them violate that chain? If the President of the United States is telling you to mobilize, why didn't that happen? And did Secretary Clinton have something to do with that?
And that's where the question about a stand-down order comes
I just want to talk about this tone deafness that you were talking about, Harris, because yesterday and the day before, we heard Hillary and Josh Earnest, the White House spokesperson, talk about how we have wasted $7 million. Now, $7 million of taxpayer funds is 1/10 the amount of money that we have spent on President Obama's vacations. So $7 million, isn't it worth the life of one American to find out what happened? At least, I mean, to put a dollar amount on the lives of Americans seems so crass to me.
You know, I watch you get upset about this, and I don't know if people out there know that you're the father of a Marine, and you feel really passionate about this because you have a child out there and you have a wife at home who worries about that child. I mean, he's not a child, he's a grown man, but like all of our kids,
in his 30s now, but still, he's
our boy. You get so upset about this because you know how you would feel if you were one of those parents in that awful situation. And when she says it's time to move on, I watched you. I mean, that breaks your heart because you're like, for those parents, it's not time to move on.
But you know,
the money, the $7 million. You can't put a price tag on my son.
What we've spent from what you've done the research on the president's vacations. But I would also say this, and you know, Sandra and I are children of veterans too. You don't have to have that deep connection with the military to care about what's going on. Our diplomats walk out democracy around the planet. That's what they do. It's our job as the American citizenry to make sure that our government protects our value system walking out around the planet. That's very important.
And you know
when
what?
they ask for extra sandbags and they ask for extra weapons, why weren't those requests given?
And she moved on right away. She moved on to the point where she had to be told, she had to be instructed and directed to do something so basic as to reach out by phone to one of the surviving victims.
By the way, 2 of the people who were killed in Benghazi were diplomats, so you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It wasn't just Marines or
Well, and
soldiers.
anybody with them.
Right. All right. Amid growing